All right? Okay. Where I left you 2 weeks ago, Eli's 2 sons were killed in a battle. When Eli found out about it, he fell in his chair and he broke his neck. But the bad thing was the Philistines now had the Ark of the Covenant, and that's where we left. While Israel mourned, the Philistines celebrated their victory. They brought that ark to Ashod. Now remember, this was a wonderful souvenir from a great battle that they won. They placed it in the temple of their god. Now their god was this huge stone statue. When the people got up the next morning, guess what? The statue had broken. Part of it had fallen on the ground. So what they did was they just put it back where it was before. But the following morning, they got up, went into the temple, and what had happened? It fell again. This time, the hands came off and the head came off. So they're thinking, maybe there's more power in this ark than we can handle. Do we need a light? The back one, or something. Here they had the ark. They thought it was going to be power for them. But they're going to soon find out that it wasn't power for them. But divine judgment didn't stop at the statue. The Lord's hand was heavy on the town. The Lord brought devastation and afflicted everybody that lived there with tumors. So now the whole town has had their statue of their God destroyed, and now everybody's walking around with tumors all over their body. So the people of Ashdod quickly realized there was a connection between the ark and what was happening to them. So they said, oh, we'll just go give it to another town. The ark of God of Israel must not stay with us because God's hand is heavy on the town. Well, they took it to Gath. And the Lord's hand was heavy on that town. The people, both young and old, had outbreaks of tumors. So guess what? They sent it to a third town. So they're going to send the problem onto Ekron. So now they just want to get rid of the ark and send it back to the Israelites. They said, enough of this. In 1 Samuel 5, they called together all the rulers of the Philistines. And they said, we got to get rid of this thing. And the only way we can get rid of it is send it back to the Israelites. But they're worried if they take it back, the Israelites are going to kill them as they are returning them. One of the other leaders said, we're going to be returning the ark which we took. Maybe we better send some things that are good with it. So the interesting thing they sent with them was golden balls and golden mice. You can see in that picture, they attached it to the cart that they had the ark, and they were golden mice. So they're sending them solid gold baubles to go with the ark. Now, do you think that made any difference to God, whether they sent the baubles or not? But that, again, is what man thinks is valuable, not what God thinks is valuable. It says, if you return to the ark of God to Israel, do not send it back without something. So they decided the way they were going to do it. Remember, they're afraid they're going to go up with it, and what are the Israelites going to do to them? Kill them. So they find 2 oxen, that have had calves, but they take the calves away from the oxen and they hook the oxen up to the wagon and they take them on the road toward Israel, and then they stop because they don't want to get anywhere near the Israelites. Because remember, the Israelites are angry. They know where the ark is. They've also known that they have displeased God. Remember, the reason they got the ark was Eli's bad sons had taken them without permission. So they put the gold items on the end of the ark, and they led the oxen down the road to Shemesh. And the oxen went on. And so the Philistines knew that they had done the right thing. But they're going to stand far away before the oxen cart gets there. Now, in Shemesh, the oxen pull up, and the people of Beth Shemesh are out in the fields. And here they see the Ark of the Covenant coming up the road. Well, that's quite an amazing sight. These people are just farmers out in the field. Normally, priests are handing the Ark of the Covenant. But this makes me realize that everyday people have the right to a relationship with God. We have to remember this. And this is what this scene told me. They look and saw the ark, and so what they did, they wanted to do a sacrifice to the Lord. So they cut the cart apart and did a burnt offering. And then they sent to the important people, the priests, said, look what we have. We have the ark. And they put them on a rock, waiting for someone to come get them. Well, again, some of the Israelites forgot the power of the ark, and they decided they wanted to look inside it. About 70 of them died because they looked inside the ark. Again, this is to remind you, the power of God is limitless. He can affect your life even when you don't think he can. So we now have many of the people in Beth Shemesh dead. So now, this was what I found very, very interesting. They brought the ark to the people of Kirith and Jearim, and they brought him to Abinadab's house on a hill. It was kind of isolated. And they told the man's son that he was going to be responsible for the ark. That was God's plan. And what happens is the young man takes on the responsibility. And for the next 20 years, things go well in Israel. The word spread, do not take the ark. And that's why things went well. All of the people of Israel, under the leadership of Samuel, turned back to the Lord. They saw what happened when the ark was gone. They saw what God did to the people, the Philistines. They saw when the people peeked inside the ark and they died. The people recognized. Again, remember, that's where that covenant comes up again. We've talked about it over and over. They broke it, but they're back with God again. A new covenant was established. Samuel said he would be their representative to God. Samuel used to talk to God quite a bit. And this is a terrible analogy, but sometimes as a kid, you want to tell the principal something. Let's say it's something good. And you don't want to just walk up to the principal and say, hey, I've got something great to tell you, because it might change things at school. So you find someone else you can talk to first. Well, this was sort of the role that Samuel was playing. It was a powerful moment of national renewal. Now, the Philistines come up again. And they decide to attack the Israelites while they're establishing this covenant again. It had been 20 years, and they didn't like the power that the Israelites had. They had forgotten what happened before. When the Philistines heard that the Israelites had assembled in Mizpah, they came to attack them. The Israelites heard they were coming, and they were afraid because they did not have an army the size of the Philistines. This time, instead of relying on the ark, they asked for Samuel to speak to God. Samuel offered a burnt offering, and God issued this loud thunder that overtook the battlefield. The Philistines were terrified. The Israelites ran in, and they killed them all. To commemorate this victory, Samuel set up a memorial. We read of his act and his words in Samuel 7. He took a stone and he set it up between the two main towns in Israel. And he said, "Thus far the Lord has helped us." Ebenezer means the stone of help. And that is why the song we sang. Now, let me give you a little bit of background about the gentleman that wrote that song. I don't have his name. It's not written. No, it's written on the back. Oh, here it is. Excuse me. In 1758, now that's before America was even formed. In 1758, Robert Robinson's father died, and he started going downhill the minute it happened, and he ended up with a bad gang of people. One evening, as he was walking home, he passed a revival tent. They had those 300 years ago. And he went in, and he realized that he was on the wrong path. And so he came to write hymns and became a religious person. And that was why he included the words, "Here I raise my Ebenezer." It's his stone of help. And you read the rest of the words, and you now realize what he's talking about. He's talking about the forgiveness that he received from God. Now, before I did this lesson, I had no idea what that meant. But now I know. It's the stone of help. And we need to remember that Peter was the rock for Jesus. But an Ebenezer, anytime you run across that word, that is your stone of help. That is God. And that's what that reminds you of. All right, Samuel continued to lead Israel as a judge, and he traveled each year. As a long period of time followed that they had peace. Years went by, and Samuel grew old. He realized he was going to get too old, and he had 2 sons. So he was going to hand the responsibility over to the 2 sons. And what do you think the 2 sons did? The same thing that Eli's 2 sons did. Injustice, they were involved in bribery, they were involved in all kinds of things. And now the people realize that Samuel's going to die, and those two judges are going to be over us, and they didn't want to have anything to do with that. Now, in the surrounding territories of Israel, everybody had kings. So the people went to Samuel and said, "We need a king." Well, Samuel was very unhappy about it. He went to the Lord and he talked to him. And finally, God said, "They've been forsaking me and serving other gods from the day I brought them out of Egypt until this day." They've been breaking all those covenants. Still, he instructed Samuel to grant their request to give them a king. But the Lord told Samuel he had to tell them one thing. He had to tell them what it was going to like being with a king. They were going to lose all their rights. If the king wanted to take their property, he could. If a king wanted to take their sons to be soldiers, he could. If the king needed women as house servants, he could take them. If they wanted half of your crop, he could take them. So Samuel presented it to them. And guess what they said? We don't mind. Yeah. So the people returned to the town, and God was already preparing Israel's first king. In the tribe of Benjamin, there lived a man named Kish, and he had a respected son named Saul. And God said to Samuel, I will send you a man from the land of Benjamin. Anoint him as the ruler of my people Israel. He will deliver them from the hands of the Philistines. Because guess what? The Philistines were still there, still attacking them. And Samuel took the flask of olive oil and poured it on Saul's head. Has not the Lord anointed you ruler over his inheritance? Now, Samuel did not announce it yet to everybody. He told Saul to keep it a secret. After a time, Samuel called all the people to join, and he announced that Saul would be king. Problem was, not everybody was happy with Saul being the king. In fact, many of them despised him because remember, now we have a king that's going to take stuff from us. And they didn't give him gifts. Saul reigned for 2 years, and then the Philistines came. With God's help, Saul was able to lead the Israelites to destroy the Philistines again. But the problem was, Saul told everyone he had done it, not God. So now, 2 years into his rule, he's already messing up in his relationship with God. Samuel became angry with Saul because of that. He told him so, and he left. And he never saw Saul again. And that's where I leave us. Okay.
All right.